Hey everyone, and welcome to another JordanCon interview. I'm here today with Rey Nichols. She specializes in urban fantasy, sci-fi noir, and supernatural horror. She often spends her days drinking cocoa and is a board game aficionado, like me. She's self-proclaimed an unhealthy addiction to eldritch horror. Hey Rey, how you doing today?
Thank you so much.
I'm excited. I'm excited. I love so board games and eldritch horror. Mansions of Madness.
I have played Mansions of Madness. I played actually a lot of the Arkham series of games.
Okay.
But actually, the one I like the most of that is probably Eldritch Horror, just because of how it flows, how the there's a good balance between player interaction and
Like the game itself.
difficulty, and
Yeah.
it's very modular in how you can raise and lower the difficulty level. And then I also own all of it, and it fits in this nice little storage case.
Oh, that's my shelving board games is like a different hobby in and of itself.
Yeah, you know you have a problem when you go to Broken Token and you're like, I'm going to spend $250 on this custom case for so I can get rid of boxes,
A
and then you realize
thousand percent.
you spent more on storage than you did on the actual games
Oh my
themselves.
god, I totally feel you. I totally feel you. Oh my god, that's funny. So, my wife and I also have like forget about it. Like we just moved into a new house, and like one of the first things we did was put up like a shelf specifically. Like we were
Mhm.
like, we can't wait to put up a board game shelf, and that was the first one of the first things we did. So, I guess let's start off there. Is there any like particular game mechanic like within a game? Like for instance, I love one of my favorite games is Battlestar Galactica, the board game,
Mhm.
and like I really love the hidden trader mechanic in the board game. It's a lot of fun. So is there any kind of like particular mechanic within a board game like that that you really like or really don't like? Like I never play a board game with that in it, or I always look for board games with this in it, something like that.
I usually try to find something that has like a good healthy mix of like, like tactical and logical thinking. And I say that with a grain of salt because when it comes to things like Werewolf or Bang or stuff with like social deduction,
Mm-hmm.
I'll play them so I can hang out with my friends, but I don't like social deduction games because some it's a lot of it's like how well can you profile somebody,
Yeah.
And I just honestly I'd rather play a game with tactics like Carcassonne, or hell, I'll sit down and play a game of chess with somebody.
Yeah.
Um or just things to where they have a good mix of whether they're cooperative or competitive, that just some kind of like tactical thought process to them, you
Okay.
know.
So less social deduction, more like hard
Well,
tactics within a game
yeah, yeah,
type
yeah,
thing. Okay,
absolutely.
that's cool. That's cool. So just popped into my head when you said that one of my favorite games specifically for tactics, specifically war, is the Game of Thrones risk style game that they
Mhm,
made, specifically because it doesn't have any dice in it. Like
mhm.
I really enjoy risk and games that are like like zone control like that, where you take over the map. But the thing that I always hated about them was the dice, and that
Mhm.
Game of Thrones game specifically because it's mostly tactically thinking because there's no dice. It's based off of like the hard um, uh, infantry numbers on the board. Plus, you have a deck of cards in your hand, but you could plan ahead for all of that. So there's really no randomness to the battles, other than you don't know what your opponent has.
Right, and that's why I love, especially a lot of the tile placement games. And I'm going to use Carcassonne a lot because I play a lot of it.
That's fine. I love Carcassonne too.
Is like you're sitting there and you're waiting for the bag to be passed around. You have the tile in here. I'm like, okay, well, this can go here, here, or here, based on of what you do. I'm like, you blocked me. Reevaluating friendship. Okay, now we're gonna play this tile down.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. You got to
things,
think 7, 8 moves ahead.
things like that. Or if you ever play the game, it's an Arcane Wonders game called Royals. It's kind of like a Ticket to Ride
Hmm.
mechanic style stuff, but with a little bit of backstabbing because you're trying to get influence and territory control. It's the same thing. You have these cards in your hand, and based on what influence you decide to purchase or trade for,
Yeah.
um, it's going to be based on what the people before you do as to how you're going to react. So it's a good balance of planning ahead, and then you have to to react and be proactive at the same time, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's the type of thing that I like about board games too. Is specifically like, there's so many different flavors and things like that that you could find that invoke different types of thinking. So it's like, I don't really feel like doing much today, with this group of friends. Let's play like a fun party game, or like, oh, I really want to get into it. Let's go play Twilight Imperium. For those who don't know, that's a big game. Minimum like 9 hours, and that's
let's just put that there with Relic.
Yep.
Like, okay, you see those boxes come out, you're like, okay, guys, let's go order food now because we're gonna be like here 8 hours or more.
Yep. I played like I think a 16-hour game of Twilight Imperium once. It was on tabletop day where it was like 24 hours.
I mean, if you're gonna play a 16-hour game, just go ahead and bust out the mahjong set and
yeah, you're not kidding.
3 days later.
Okay, so if you could pick any people, living or dead, real or fiction, to play a board game with, what would the game be and who would the people be?
Honestly, I'm gonna stick with my Eldritch War because as the board game because yeah. And then because this came up, and honestly, like I think we were talking about dream people we would love to see there. I would like to see let's get Vin Diesel and Henry Cavill in here because we know they're like two like the biggest nerds in fantasy and sci-fi media.
Absolutely, and Cavill is actually a big fan of the Wheel of Time.
Oh my god!
Yep, he's brought it up in a couple of interviews.
I think, yeah, that's pretty amazing. I'm actually trying desperately hard for my most current run of reading this series because they're big books.
Oh yeah.
Trying to get them done before JordanCon. I'm in the middle of book 6 right now, so if I try really hard, I can make it. But I don't think that's going to happen because I still have Rhythm of War sitting up here that I've got to read too.
Oh, me too. I have not. I feel so terrible. I have not read.
And I'm like, I'm just waiting to see. I'm like, okay, I'm prepared to talk about anything, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to talk about yet. When I get there, what panels I'm going to be. I'm like, I need to prep for this, and I'm going to prep by doing what I'm doing anyway, which is reading Robert Jordan books and Sanderson books. And
fair enough.
And I'm like, I need to get further on into this series so I remember what's going on.
No, it's tough. It's tough. It's like 3.3 million words or something like that.
Just a few.
Yeah. In the Wheel of Time, and I don't even think that counts the prequel novel. So. We have you here today because you are a guest author at JordanCon. So yes, I mean I could talk board games and video games and anime and stuff like that all day. But do you want to give us just a short pitch on what your book is about, and so we can get some people interested in it?
Well, my book it's an urban fantasy novella. Of course, it's titled Apollo Grant, and it is about a vampire hunter in Vegas who is basically trying to stop, the big bad from creating a super army of vampires, and it's very tongue-in-cheek humor. Apollo is, either you like him or you don't. He means to do well, but he also makes a lot of really bad decisions along the way in his process of trying to do the right thing. So
that's great though. I love the what I look for in a lot of stories, especially with main characters, is their flaws are really what makes the story interesting. Like, just reading a book about like a white knight who's just great at everything and is infallible it's not fun. Like someone who has flaws and is a little wrong, and you're like, oh my god, I can't believe you made this decision. Like that's great. That's great. So it's set in Vegas. And when I checked it out, I had seen the main character, like I think it was scrolling through a phone.
Right.
So modern day urban fantasy.
Yeah, so modern day urban fantasy. Of course, when I wrote this story, there was no pandemic, so we're just going to pretend in Apolloverse that the pandemic doesn't exist. Okay. But yeah, I had back before we thought like the pandemic was going to be years and years and turn to an actual endemic now, which is what it is now.
Yeah.
I was like, well, my hours are getting slashed with my day job. I have nothing to do. I'm just going to write the story. I had no intention of publishing this thing. I just wanted to write something.
Yeah.
And I hadn't read a lot of urban fantasy at that point. I had been reading a lot of epic and a lot of stuff like that. And then I started getting into my friend John Hartness's stuff. And I'm like, I really like the fact that, you know, when I started reading more and more and more urban fantasy, it allows me to use a setting that I know and just kind of filter in supernatural elements and still tell a fantasy story without overdoing it. I got to take the best of what I like about everything that I had been reading at that point and write something that was free and loose and
that's an interesting way to put it.
Yeah, it's urban fantasy was definitely different. It allowed me to do more of a comedic spin and still write fantasy, which is what I'm seeing a lot of, and I just loved it. I mean, I was trying to think of something to write again when all this happened, and I was thinking about a trip that I had taken to Vegas with a friend of mine. His name is Greg, and I haven't talked to him in years, but the actual conversation that took place was the opening of my book, where we're standing. Have you ever been to Vegas?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're in I'm assuming you've walked through the Paris. So you're in the Paris.
Yeah.
And you're in like their little casino room. And it looks like, you know, you're in a little Parisian city. And like the skyline overhead is the model of the sky. And he just comes up and feeds me his version of this blackjack and hookers line. And we start talking about it. And now, this is where my nerd card gets temporarily because I had never seen Futurama at this point.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
right,
at that point. And this was something that a friend said to me. And so I had to, but still, they could still work. It still worked. It was just a simple pop culture quasi reference. And I used it as an opener and it worked. So...
That's pretty cool, though.
And then I pantsed that whole scene, and I was like, I'm just going to write this about this dude. And like, well, now I'm stuck with it. Now I got to figure out, why is he stuck in Vegas? Why are there vampires? Why hasn't he gone home?
No. You ask him, why are you stuck in Vegas?
There's a reason. I actually just finished the draft for a follow-up to Apollo Grant, and you find out. I mean, he mentions it throughout the narrative, but then you figure out why he got stuck and why he made the dumb decision to stay.
Okay. So stay tuned and look for the second. Do you have a time frame?
It's in beta. No, because right now I've only got contracted for book one, but I did talk to my publisher a couple months ago, and she said when it was finished to send it to her. So
cool.
It's in beta. It's in a final beta read right now, and I'm gonna get it cleaned up. Yes. I really actually, from a project that I had no intention of ever publishing to
writing a second book.
Yeah, I'm writing a second book. I have a plan for 5.
Oh, that's awesome. That's so cool, though.
I mean, it's a novella, so novellas are just like quick, easy, fun stuff. So
that's fair. And for people who don't know, basically a novella is really just a shorter version of a book. Things happen a little bit quicker, right? Right.
It's I think there's maybe like 30,000 words in it, roundabout.
Yeah.
Book 2 has slightly more, but then again, when it goes through professional edits, it'll probably get cut down.
Yeah.
But what I like about them is their quick storytelling. A lot of the world building is done through action and dialogue. You're doing a lot of trimming of fat so you can fit it in that space, because a lot of readers now, they have short attention spans. Love y'all, mean it, but they just want to read the book and be done with it.
Yeah.
And that's what I like about novella writing, is you get to the meat of the story and you get there fast and enjoy the ride.
Yeah, high fantasy is definitely something hard to sell to a younger audience today, which is understandable. It's just, it's just the natural evolution of entertainment. But so urban fantasy, it presents it like its own set of difficulties with writing, or maybe not difficulties, but just different tools that you need to use, because like, say in a sword and sorcery fantasy setting, if they need to know when the sun is going to set, or when the next full moon is for that ritual, they could just they gotta go find a knowledgeable old wizened person on a hill somewhere and ask them. But if in an urban setting, they could just pull out their phone and like look up, it's next week at 6 p.m. Whatever. So is there any kind of process that you use that you would think is maybe, I don't know if you have written anything in sword and sorcery before, but like that is like just starkly different between the two?
Not so much starkly different, because I do have a again, like I said, I had started writing like, not so much sword and sorcery, but more like of an epic high fantasy before I started writing urban.
Okay.
And I think not so much different, but the process is the same. What you have to think about is, okay, what technology is available? and then how your character is going to utilize it. And then once you figure those parameters out, make sure you just stick to the rules of your world build and remember what those rules are. I it's am I looking, like you said, at a sundial, or am I going, okay Google, let's see what's going on today, you know?
No, that's entirely
Like,
fair.
yeah, figure out your rules, how your character's going to interact with it, and then establish it and go.
Yeah. The Harry Potter and like Harry Dresden series did, you know, the shtick of it's an urban fantasy, but when wizards get near technology, it breaks. So the, Butcher, that's how he avoids Dresden being able to just pick up a phone and look stuff up. And it's both cheap and easy, but also funny. So it's fun.
Right. I haven't read any of Butcher's stuff, but a friend of mine recommended it to me, and so I have one of his books on my Kindle that I'm hopefully going to get to.
Yeah, I do highly enjoy them. I would.
Yeah, they sound like they're my cup of tea, and I really want to read them, but I've got book clubs and stuff, and
I can only imagine. I don't understand how I feel like I've had less time to read over this. I've seen a lot of, so some writers, like, to do research and stuff like that, they go on like pilgrimage around. So like you kind of incidentally went on one to Vegas. Is there one that you've ever done, or something that you know, like, oh, it'd be great if I could go to the Great Wall of China and, like, you know, get inspired by that? But have you ever done one, or do you ever want to do one like that?
I do, when the finances will allow.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking, and I had proposed this again before the world went on its backside. Just like, you know, like tossing a dart at a map and like, okay, I'm going to go here and I'm going to learn about this place. And then, because there's cool stuff everywhere, I found.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up in a small, well, not so small. I grew up in a college town, but I grew up in that river town farm environment, and, you know, just listening to urban legends and stories about the townsfolk and stuff. There's that kind of storytelling exists everywhere, and is just great fodder and inspiration for creating, like, you know, incorporating it into my fiction.
That's cool. So, do you have anything that's like your writing kryptonite, something that like just shuts you off from writing?
Not that I can think of specifically.
Okay.
What I think,
or something that really inspires you. Is there like a specific thing that like inspires you, like, oh, I really want to write, or something that gets you in the mood to write?
I think honestly, just what keeps me in not so much getting me in the mood to write, but what keeps me in there is just making sure I always am either reading something or listening to an audiobook. I've noticed to where as long as I keep doing that, then I'm writing a little bit each day. Or if I don't write that day, the next time I'm available to write, I'm just banging it out.
That's cool. That's cool. So, back to you for a little bit, just away from the books. So we know you're a board gamer. Is there any other fun nerd type hobbies that you enjoy doing?
I mean, I play a lot of Final Fantasy.
Final Fantasy Online?
Yes,
yes.
yes.
I have not played the new expansion, but I played it a lot in the last over the pandemic.
The new expansion is fantastic. It brought a very, very good end to the current arc, and I'm really excited for what the next patch is going to bring to it.
That's cool. I'm interested. I really want to give it a shot. I like the new class that they added in.
Yeah, the new class is pretty fun. Of course, I play a little potato person, and it's really
they're cute.
They are, because if I say potato person, people instantly get the right image of what I'm saying. If
Absolutely.
I say Lalafell, they're like, what?
What? Yeah, potato person is perfect.
Potato
it's
person.
Absolutely perfect.
No, and it's funny because I tried out the new jobs. I tried out the new Reaper class, and when I say Reaper, people are like, okay, well, what does your character look like? And I show them a picture, and they're expecting like super dark, edgy. And pretty princess in a white pink fluffy dress, and like and I've glamored everything so it's all bright and shiny and the complete antithesis of what a reaper should be.
That's amazing.
So when I show up in these random pugs and they're like everybody's all dressed up like this, and I'm like
yeah, that's awesome. I love it. I love subverting expectations like that. That's always one of my favorite things. I try to do it in life too.
And I like seeing like stuff like that in a kind of segueing that a little bit into like writing, because you're like, okay, you have a character that their point is to do this, but mannerism wise and behavior wise is completely unexpected, but it still functions.
Yeah, fair enough.
Within the parameters of what you're reading. So I love stuff like that.
All right, so to finish up, one of my favorite shows growing up was Inside the Actor Studio with James Lipton, the late great James Lipton. He had a set of questions that he would ask at the end of every interview that he did. I pared those questions down to like 6 or so questions from like the 12 that I think it is on his show, or 10 that it is on his show. So I've been asking everyone I'm going to ask everyone that we interview those questions. So, the first one is, what is your favorite word?
God, you sent me these questions and I should have thought about this answer. I don't have a favorite word.
It's okay.
Goodness, what is a word that I use a lot? I mean,
or even just a word that when you hear it brings you joy.
Honestly, I'm going to go super basic, and I'm going to go with cat, because I have a cat and he's awesome. He's 14 pounds and lovable, and I love him so much.
That is entirely fair. I have 2, and one of them is staring at me from the doorway right now. Like, go downstairs and give me an ice cube.
I've got mine. He's sitting next to my hamster cage, and he's just looking at me like, you're not feeding me. And
mine really enjoys ice, so he's just like, go downstairs and use the thing that gives me ice, please. Thank you.
He likes to sit on the kitchen sink and be like, okay,
turn it on.
Turn on. Like, I don't want that water fountain down there. I want you to turn the sink on.
Yeah. All right. And what is your least favorite word?
Oh, this one I know the answer to, and I have, every time I say this word, and it's the stupidest thing, I have to say it very slowly. It's the word world, like WORLD. I can say it fine if I'm thinking about it, but it's like words that have O and R juxtaposed next to each other. I'm like, it comes out like that weird sound, and I'm like, world, yeah.
No, I feel you on that.
But out there for the internet for all to see is me horribly mad.
I do that with L's and O's for some reason. I like put them together, and it always sounds weird. Especially when I follow one L and O, one like different sounds, words that have different L sounds and O sounds, one after the other. I always mess them up. I think I actually messed them up real bad in one of our other interviews that maybe we could see about posting like a blooper reel of me being an idiot at some point.
Opening ceremonies, author blooper reels. Here we go.
Yeah. It would probably only be me, only because I don't want to embarrass you guys. I'll take all the embarrassment. Okay, so what is the first thing you notice about a person?
Generally, the first thing I notice is their body language, is their posture, their body language. Okay. A lot of people will say like eyes or something basic like that, but I'm like, I need to see how you're conducting yourself before I even get a chance to look at your face. That's fair. You know, that's so. And a lot of times when and it reflects my writing too, is like, I'll do that, like, because somebody's approaching you, you're not close enough to their face to see facial features. You're seeing how they're walking, their gait, everything having to do with that. That tells a lot of information if you know what to look for.
Okay. If other than your current profession as an author or your day job, what is a profession that you would like to attempt?
So for this one, I've already tried to attempt it, and I just don't have the time to study. But there was a period of time where I was studying ASL to be a sign language interpreter. Oh. So I mean, I know some basic conversational ASL, but I just, certain life events happened, and I stepped out of that program. So it's something I would like to get back to. But I think where I've compensated for now that I've gotten back into writing, is I try to use some form of either hand talk or something to bring, either like deaf characters or sign language into my writing, because not so much to create visibility, because I think it's just, I don't want to say like I'm trying to like make money or anything off of it,
No.
just to
Representation is important.
diversity. Yeah, representation, diverse. I want to do diversity in the right way,
Yeah. Yeah. Representation is important.
right?
Absolutely.
Because these people exist. I mean, no fantasy world is perfect. So I have a character in a manuscript I'm working now that uh, is trying to compensate for his lack of hearing. He loses it. Like, he has it for the first chapter and then he just loses it.
Okay, and that's a horse of a different color when when it
Right.
comes to things like, now you've gone your whole life with hearing, and now you have
Mhm.
to try to figure out how without.
Like, how, and it's are you just, it's like trying to figure out, like, okay, well, you're still a person, and he doesn't view himself as disabled. He's just like, well, this is how I am now.
Yep.
So
And then, right along that same vein, is there any profession that you could think of that you would never want to attempt?
oh, I've already done that one. I will never do face-to-face retail again.
Oh, I don't blame you.
Nah. I did that for many, 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 many years.
Yeah, I don't blame you. And then finally, one of my favorite ones is, what is your favorite curse word?
From the modern day vernacular, I'm not going to say that or record that, but
That's fair.
um, what I like, I think my favorite, I think my answer is going to be a little bit of a shift of my favorite use of curse words where they aren't typical curses, but they're used as curse words.
Oh yeah,
And
I love that too.
I am going to refer to Brandon Sanderson on this. Yeah, because in the books he'll use like colors or
Hmm.
things like that. Um, and you see it in some of Jordan's writing, things like how they use their figureheads or the types of magic in their system as curse words where they're
Hmm.
not actual curse. I like stuff like that because that creates world building, and I've been known now that I write more to do some of the same thing, and my friends look at me like I'm crazy.
That's
So
no, that's pretty cool. I really enjoy uh, the redisposed, like the curse words that they use in The Good Place, the TV show The Good Place. Those are fantastic.
work,
Yeah.
work.
Well, when you're not playing board games or writing vampires, you'll be able to find Ray at raynichols.com, or on Facebook at Rey Nichols Writer, on Twitter at R Nichols Writer, and Instagram Rey Nichols Writer. All of the links for which will be below down there somewhere, this video, or around the blog, wherever they post it. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you at JordanCon.
I thank you so much.